Oh my god.
Hey guys, welcome to another exciting edition of Ask Why. Yinka here, and today is going to be Ask Why Make Keto Bread. Now, if you guys follow me on social media, you know that I live and die by keto bread. I make them literally every single week. They are a staple to my keto diet. And so many of you guys have messaged me, have asked me up and down, how do you make this? How do you make this? I'm finally showing you how to make it for the first time ever. Welcome to my home. Bay, as always, is on camera, and he is here to help me shoot today. I'm sure you guys are noticing the tasty muffins. Those are my keto / clean banana muffins. This is another recipe that you guys have asked me for. So if you stay tuned to my channel, subscribe right about now and click that bell, you will be the first to know when the recipes for these delicious muffins hit the web. But until then, we are going to be focusing on these lovely ingredients today because this is all you need to make keto bread. Now, you need about 1.5 cups of almond flour. I get my almond flour from Costco, but they sell them at Giant, at Safeway, at BJ's, wherever you shop. You can possibly find them, but I get mine from Costco because you just obviously get a big size. As you can see, I make these religiously, so I'm gonna have to re-up on that. Then you're gonna need 4 eggs. Now you need these 4 eggs to be at room temperature. I kid you not, this is gonna be the key that's gonna help determine the consistency of your keto bread. If your eggs are too cold, your bread will come out like a little crusty at the top, so make sure they're room temperature. Mine have been sitting out for about almost an hour now, just so that I made sure that they're exactly at room temperature. Then you're gonna need 5 tablespoons of butter. You're gonna need unsalted butter. I usually go with the Earth Balance. It's vegan, non-GMO, all around good for you, and it's also organic. You cannot go wrong. So I go with that. Then you're gonna need some type of sweetener. Some people use stevia, some people use ethereal or something like that. I don't know, but I stick to stevia. Now this, you can go to any fancy store and they can charge you upwards of 10. I've even seen them to be $15. I get mine at a little place called Aldi. This whole bag is $3. So that is the plug. And as far as the stevia goes, you are gonna need just 1 tablespoon of that. Now the stevia is optional. You can make this bread without the 0-calorie sweetener. You don't need it, but I feel like it kind of just adds more to my bread. Then you are going to need right here baking powder, not to be confused with baking soda. Trust me guys, there is a difference, okay? So if you use baking soda and you're like, Yinka, this bread is not coming out right, this and this is probably why. These two make the biggest difference. So make sure that you get baking powder. I even have to look at it to make sure I'm saying the right thing. Baking powder. Now for baking powder, you're gonna need 3 teaspoons. This has been tablespoon. This has been tablespoon. This is teaspoon. I'll be sure to write down the measurements for all the ingredients in the description box below. So don't worry about trying to get all of this now. It will be there available for you. You know what's also next to the description box? The subscribe button. Just in case I hadn't said that already. Okay, and then you're gonna need a simple baking pan. And then you are going to need spray on like cooking oil. You can either do this, or I've seen people use more butter. I've seen people use oil. For me, just for the convenience and making sure that I'm in control of how many fats I'm using, I just like to use this, and it's such an easy cleanup. Okay, now you're gonna need a mixer. Well, let me rephrase that. You don't need a mixer, but a mixer makes things easier, right? So I have my KitchenAid mixer right here that I'm gonna use to help me make everything. By the way, this video is not sponsored by KitchenAid, it's not sponsored by Costco, and it's not sponsored by Aldi. This is just where I get my stuff, trying to make it easier for you. I know a lot of you guys follow me from Nigeria. I know that you can definitely get almond flour if you are in Nigeria from Prince Ebano. They definitely have almond flour, and then, you know, butter, they have that as well. They have eggs. Nigeria always has organic eggs. And I do believe you can get stevia also from Ebano. So all these things are available to you no matter where you live in the world. If you do not have a mixer, all you need is just a regular bowl and a whisk. Or I don't even have a whisk. If you don't have a whisk, a fork will do just as well, because I used to make them with a fork and a bowl all the time. But as you can see, this will make them easier. This is the whisk that comes attached to my KitchenAid. But they sell these with just a longer handle, and you can use that. So either whisk or fork, you are good to go. So let's get started. Before you start anything, you want to make sure that you preheat your oven. I've got my oven to 350 degrees. It's been preheated now. I'll say it's been on, because I used them to make the muffins. So at this point, they're pretty darn good. But preheat your oven. On my oven, it'll beep and it'll let me know once it's reached the temperature. If you don't have an oven that does that, just turn on your oven, and I'll say give it about 20 minutes and it should be at your desired temperature. As you can see, I have separated my ingredients. And the reason why I separate my ingredients is because it makes it easier to combine. Now, in most cooking things, when they say combine A first, combine B first, it doesn't really affect how it comes out. But with keto bread, it does, because you have to keep in mind that you're not working with regular flour, you're working with almond meal. So you really do have to combine these ingredients in the order that I say that you should combine them in. So we've got our whisk that we are going to attach. Oh, sorry. This was still from the banana muffins that we are going to attach. So the first thing that I'm going to put in, you want to combine all of your dry ingredients first. Then you will add your egg. Then you will melt your butter and add your butter. Okay? So let's do it. We take our 1.5 cups of almond flour. All right? Make sure that we really get it in there. Got everything in there. Okay? Then the next thing that we do is we take our low-calorie sweetener. So that's my stevia. Put it in there, right? Then we take our 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Mix it all in there. Looks like a lot of baking powder, but you need it so that your ingredients will rise. If you have this already, you already know how this works. Just take it, you attach it, and you secure it. Heard the click. We are now good to go. We bring it up and we stir. You want to make sure you really make sure that everything is stirred up in there. And that it is good to go. Okay. Right? I usually stir it. Oh, sorry. This is like the worst angle to end your thing. So, once again, if you don't have a fancy smancy machine like this, you just take something and you just mix it together. That's all you do. You don't have to run out and get a KitchenAid. Like, I mean, they're great, but you don't have to do it. You can literally make this with what you already have at home. So, we make sure that we mix it up really nice and good. Okay. Now we're gonna add our eggs. But before we add our eggs, I'm gonna make sure that I stick this in the microwave and I allow it to melt for 1 minute. While that is melting, I will turn this back on. And I will slowly, let me do it from this angle, I will slowly pour my egg in there. Okay, make sure you get your eggs, all the egg whites, everything is in there. Okay, as you can see, the consistency is changing. So I'm gonna speed it up so I make sure everything is really nice and good. Okay. Still waiting for my butter, but as you can see, I'm making sure that the consistency is really in there. I got all my eggs and everything in there. I'm increasing speed because I want it to be really, really nice. So let's see if my butter is nice and melted. As you can see, 1 minute, everything is nicely melted. Then you want to pour the butter in. Pour everything in there. Got all of the butter nice and melted. Awesome. Go back up. And we stir for one last final time. Work your speed up, which I didn't do, but work your speed up. So you can see it's folding in everything. Work the speed up. Bring it down. As you can see, this is starting to look like an actual batter that you would use to make bread. If you've ever made at-home bread before, like, you know that this is starting to actually look like an actual at-home batter. Okay. And I'm Nigerian, so I'm not wasteful. I like to make sure I get every single crust in there. Okay. I'm gonna stir together just one last time. Remember, work your speed up. If you're using a KitchenAid, if you're not using a KitchenAid, just go with your hand and mix it as quickly as you can. Alright, so when your batter consistency looks like this, and I'm going to take it out so you guys can really see what it looks like. When your batter consistency looks like this, you are now more than ready to go. And this is a really good consistency. And you're gonna see why, because it makes it 1,000 times easier to spread. So the next thing we want to do now is get your baking sheet. As you can see, I bake a lot, and this is how I'm gonna cut them once I'm done, but let me not get ahead of myself, okay? You take your cooking spray, and you wanna make sure that you get a really good spray. You wanna get the corners, because you don't want it to be stuck on the corners either. So get a really good amount, and that's it. I'll shake it around a bit, make sure that all the oils really get where they're supposed to get to, and you're done. So you then take your batter, and make sure that your hands are clean. I washed my hands before I started, and I've washed everything before I started, but I like to not be wasteful with my batter, so I like to make sure that I have the batter nice and ready to go. So I want to make sure we get all the batter. This gets messy. As you can see, it gets really messy. Okay, so you take your batter like this, take the same spoon that we've been using, and I plump it right on there. Okay. And you want to get one of those baking pans that's not super duper stiff, because you want it to be able to shake and like bend into to spread evenly on the sheet. And this is what I mean. I'll be right back. Let me like rinse my hand. So this is what I mean. You're gonna take it and you're gonna shake it about on the pan. You want your dough to be able to move, which is what I'm saying why you want a pan that's super malleable to the dough. You want your dough to be able to move around your pan easily. And I'm sure you guys are looking at it and you're like, Yinka, is this gonna be enough dough for this? Trust me, it is. Because it's gonna rise and cover up the pan. Now, depending on how thin or how thick you want your bread, that's up to you, and that's gonna decide the size pan that you use. Some people like really thin, like almost as if you're making like a flatbread or you're making like a thin crisp. You can do that, but if you do that, that means that you want a bigger pan, right? Because you want your batter to spread around thinner. This is gonna give you the size of a normal slice of bread once we've cut them. That's what this is gonna give us. And you just gotta play with it for a bit. This is probably the longest part of the process. Well, besides baking it. Spreading it on the pan. All right, so as you guys can see, all the batter has been used. There wasn't anything added or anything. So a key to kind of getting it to spread is a spoon like this. You do want something that's flat so that you can be able to spread it out with. And then one thing, which is why I suggest that you get a pan that's like malleable, because you're gonna shake it just like this to help you spread it across. And then another thing that I do, and this might get kind of loud, guys, so I apologize, is I bang it out, okay? No pun intended. I literally take the pan and I bang it right on my counter. I'll bang the sides to make it even. And then you get this once you're done. That's how you get it to be nice and flat and spread across and even. Okay, now we put it in the oven. When you open your oven, depending on how hot it is, you do want to step back. My oven gets pretty hot, and one time I almost cinched off all my eyebrows. So be careful. Then you wear your oven mitts, guys. Don't be like me. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm a thug. I could do it with just one hand. But like, be careful. So you want to make sure that you put it on the middle rack, or at this point, the lower rack. You don't want to put it at the top because it's going to be way too much heat. So you want to put it right there on that rack, and you want to cook it between 12 to 17 minutes, depending on how hot your oven gets, because although everyone's oven is at the same temperature, it still cooks differently. And then depending on how golden brown you want it, I typically keep mine in there for about 15 minutes because it gets the right type of golden brown. But what I do is I set my timer for 12 minutes first, and then I check it. So Alexa, set timer for 12 minutes.
12 minutes, starting now.
All right, I'm not gonna put you guys through that, so we will come back once this is good to go. All right, so the timer just went off. We are at 12 minutes. So we'll pull it out. That's what I mean about your eyebrows, guys. I will pull it out so you can see. This is what the bread looks like at 12 minutes. I'm going to leave it in for 2 more minutes. Like I said, I usually do mine for 15. And pull it out, let it cool, and then cut it after it's cooled down. So, Alexa, set timer for 2 minutes.
2 minutes, starting now.
So 2 minutes is up, and we are now officially at 17 minutes, and this is how golden brown I like it. So let me pull it up for you guys so you can see. This is how golden brown I like mine to be. I know it's really hot, so let me do this and turn this off. So have a cooling rack and set it on the cooling rack. So you want to make sure that you have it set on a cooling rack. And I usually leave mine to cool for like a good 10 minutes. But what I want you guys to take notice of is the actual edge. As you can see, the bread has risen off the tray. And this is how you know that you've done that. When the bread rises and the corners is just so amazing, that's how you know you've done it. You see how smooth this is? If it wasn't if the eggs weren't room temperature, and if you didn't use baking powder, if you use baking soda, you would see that this would be mad chunky. When we first spread it out, it would not have been able to spread. The dough would have been way too thick. So the consistency of your dough is important. You don't want it to be too thick. You don't want it to look like water either. It should be able to spread so that everything rises beautifully and perfectly. So I'm gonna let this cool for 10 minutes, come cut it and show you how you should store it. All right, so while I was waiting, I could not help myself. I had a muffin and it was delicious. So I can't wait to share that recipe with you guys. But to finish our keto bread, this is how, you see how I'm touching this? I'm touching this. I'm touching this pan and then it's not burning my hand. I'm at the bottom of the pan. The bottom of the pan is still a little bit warm, but it's fine. Our bread has cooled, okay? So here is what you're gonna need. Spatula and a knife. Okay, joking. Spatula and a knife. You just need those two things. And you're gonna need Tupperware container, one that is refrigerator friendly, because that is how I suggest you store it. Even if you're gonna eat it tomorrow, put it in the freezer tonight. So take it off your cooling rack, set your cooling rack to the side. You have this, and you cut it into as many pieces as you want. So I usually will cut mine into 6 pieces. I make some avocado toast. I use it to eat that. Any regular sandwiches, you use it to eat that. Peanut butter and jelly, grilled cheese sandwich. I make veggie burgers with these. Whatever it is that you would typically use a regular bread for, you can use this for. There's also a dinner rolls edition that I will be doing. If anyone's ever been to Red Lobster, they have like the cheesy breads. I will be making something similar to that using a similar keto ingredient. So be sure to stay tuned for that. There's a lot happening on my channel. So be sure to subscribe. Now, let's get cutting. So I would not suggest doing this with a metal spatula, obviously, because metal spatulas don't do this. They don't bend. So you're gonna want a spatula that bends so that you can really kind of like push down. I use these to also make bang bang shrimp. So it's something to toss my at-home keto bang bang shrimp with. Possibilities are endless. So you don't have to just throw them away. You can literally scrape them up, put them in a little container and save them. But this is what they look like. Perfect keto bread. I have cut them up into perfect slices, and this is gonna last for about 2 sandwiches. So whether I'm making avocado toast, like I said, regular sandwich, a burger, whatever it is that you use it for, even a side to a salad, it's perfectly fine. Take the cover, and you're gonna see it's gonna get pushed down. This is why I recommend, if you're gonna cut it the way that I cut it, get a Tupperware that's 4-sided, like this. Take this and you're gonna put it in the freezer. That's how you're gonna store it. They could stay there for 2 weeks, even if mine don't really last more than a couple days. So I'm gonna have to make another batch. But when you're ready to eat them, this is important. All you have to do is put the whole container, even if you're only eating 2 pieces of bread, put the whole container in the microwave for 1 minute. Okay, remove the lid, whatever it is, put it in there for 1 minute. Then after that, you just put it in a toaster and toast it to whatever likeness it is that you want. Even if you're making like a regular sandwich, toast it just a little bit so that it gives it that structure, and you can go ahead and eat it. Okay, so guys, I'm just inserting this video into what I've already done. So the one that I made, obviously, was the keto bread, doing them as like thin bun kind of slices. And then this one, I actually made a loaf of bread. The recipe is exactly the same. I just had to tweak just the measurements a little bit. So basically just use the same recipe, but use all the measurements, regular measurements, and a half. So for instance, like, you know, if you needed like 4 eggs, you'll use 6 eggs in order to make the loaf, you know, things like that. So use the recipe, that, and the half. But this is it as a loaf. I just cut into it. This is a slice. It's legit perfection. And I used parchment paper. So put the parchment paper into the baking pan and bake as is, and store the same, and it tastes amazing. And this method, you don't really have to worry too much about it getting stuck because it's on the parchment paper. And then this one, it kind of gives you the slices of like regular bread, where the other one, it's a little bit bigger and it's a little bit thinner. So that one you might want to use it for more like breakfast, but then if you're doing like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, this might be a better option. So yeah, enjoy. Well, thank you guys for watching another exciting episode of Ask Why. As always, be sure to comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are, and let me know what else it is that you want me to try. So whether it's another keto recipe, clean eating recipe, those are the 2 things that I like to stick with, keto and clean eating. But I'm always willing to try other things. Travel vlog, all in my channel. And while you're here, you might as well watch another old video. So click away. See you next time.
Oh my God.